Catherine Margaret Ashton, Baroness Ashton of Upholland, GCMG, PC, is a British Labour politician who served as the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and first Vice President of the European Commission in the Barroso Commission from 2009 to 2014. Her political career began in 1999 when she was created a life peer as Baroness Ashton of Upholland of St Albans, in the county of Hertfordshire by Tony Blair's Labour government. She became the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State in the Department for Education and Skills in 2001 and subsequently in the Ministry of Justice. In 2004, she was appointed a Privy Councillor in May 2006. Ashton became Leader of the House of Lords and Lord President of the Council in Gordon Brown's first cabinet in June 2007. She was instrumental in steering the EU's Treaty of Lisbon through the UK Parliament's second chamber. In 2008, she was appointed as the British European Commissioner and became the Commissioner for Trade in the European Commission. In December 2009, she became the inaugural High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy that was created by the Treaty of Lisbon. As High Representative, Ashton served as the EU's foreign policy chief, despite being criticized by some, particularly at the time of her appointment and in the early stages of her term of office, for her limited previous experience of international diplomacy. Ashton subsequently won praise for her work as a negotiator in difficult international situations, in particular for her role in bringing Serbia and Kosovo to an agreement in April 2013 that normalized the ties, and in the P5+1 talks with Iran which led to the November 2013 Geneva Interim Agreement on Iranian nuclear program. Personal life. Catherine Ashton was born at Upholland, Lancashire on the 20th of March 1956. She comes from a working-class family, with a background in coal mining. She attended Upholland Grammar School in Billinshire End, Lancashire, then Wigan Mining and Technical College, Wigan. She graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology in 1977 from Bedford College, London. She was the first person in her family to attend university. Ashton lives in St Albans with her husband, Peter Kellner, the president of an online polling organisation, YouGov. She has 2 children and 3 stepchildren. Career: United Kingdom. Between 1977 and 1983, Ashton worked for the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament as an administrator and in 1982 was elected as its national treasurer and subsequently as one of its vice-chairs. From 1979 to 1981 she was business manager of the Coverdale Organisation, a management consultancy. As of 1983 she worked for the Central Council for Education and Training in Social Work. From 1983 to 89 she was Director of Business in the Community, working with business to tackle inequality, and she established the Employers Forum on Disability, Opportunity Now, and the Windsor Fellowship. For most of the 1990s, she was a freelance policy advisor. She chaired the Health Authority in Hertfordshire from 1998 to 2001 and she became a Vice President of the National Council for One-Parent Families. She was created a Labour life peer as Baroness Ashton of Upholland in 1999, under Prime Minister Tony Blair. In June 2001 she was appointed Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State in the Department for Education and Skills. In 2002 she became Minister responsible for Sure Start in the same department, and in September 2004 she was appointed Parliamentary Under-Secretary in the Department for Constitutional Affairs, with responsibilities including the National Archives and the Public Guardianship Office. Ashton was sworn of the Privy Council in 2006, and she became Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State at the new Ministry of Justice in May 2007. In 2005 she was voted Minister of the Year by the House magazine and Peer of the Year by Channel 4. In 2006 she won the Politician of the Year award at the annual Stonewall Awards, made to those who had a positive impact on the lives of British LGBT people. On the 28th of June 2007, Prime Minister Gordon Brown appointed Ashton to HM Cabinet as Leader of the House of Lords and Lord President of the Council. As Government Leader in the House of Lords, she was responsible for steering the Lisbon Treaty through the upper house. European Union. On the 3rd of October 2008, Ashton was nominated by the UK to replace Peter Mandelson as the European Commissioner for Trade. Because European Commissioners may not engage in any other occupation during the term of office, whether gainful or not, she used the procedural device previously adopted in 1984 by Lord Cockfield and took a leave of absence from the House of Lords on the 14th of October 2008, retaining her peerage but not her seat. During her term, Ashton represented the EU in negotiations leading to a long-running dispute over beef war with the United States, led the EU delegation in an agreement with South Korea that removed virtually all tariffs between the two economies, and represented the EU in ending a long-running dispute over banana imports, principally involving Latin America and the EU. Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. On the 19th of November 2009, Ashton was appointed the EU's first High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. Her appointment was agreed at a summit by 27 European Union leaders in Brussels, having initially pushed for former British Prime Minister Tony Blair to become President of the European Council. Gordon Brown eventually relented on the condition that the post of High Representative be awarded to a Briton. Ashton's relative obscurity prior to her appointment prompted comment in the media. The Guardian newspaper reported that her appointment as High Representative had received a cautious welcome from international relations experts. The Economist described her as being a virtual unknown with paltry political experience, having no foreign policy background and never having been elected to anything. The magazine credited her, however, with piloting the Lisbon Treaty through the House of Lords, handling the European Commission's trade portfolio without disagreement with her colleagues, and being suited to consensus building. Critics predicted she would be out of her depth. Niall Gardner of the Heritage Foundation, who is on record as opposed to a European Union role in foreign and security policy on principle, wrote in the Daily Telegraph, "This may well be the most ridiculous appointment in EU history." Daniel Hannan, a British Conservative MEP, complained that she had no background in trade issues at a time when the EU is engaged in critical negotiations with Canada, Korea and the WTO. The Guardian quoted an anonymous Whitehall source as commenting, "Cathy just got lucky. The appointment of her and Herman Van Rompuy was a complete disgrace. They are no more than garden gnomes." By contrast, a former Home Secretary Charles Clarke said, "I have seen Cathy in action. I have great respect for her. She is excellent at building good relations with people and a good negotiator." Shami Chakrabarti, the director of Liberty, a human rights pressure group, said, "People underestimate Cathy at the peril. She is not a great big bruiser. She is a persuader and a charmer. That is the secret of her success." After a confirmation hearing by the Trade Committee of the European Parliament, Ashton was approved by the Parliament on the 22nd of October 2008 by 538 to 40 votes, with 63 abstentions. She took office on the 1st of December 2009 for a 5-year term. She was appointed Dame Grand Cross of the Order of St. Michael and St. George in the 2015 New Year Honours List for services to the European Commune. Foreign and security policy. Notable events of her term as a representative. Notable events of her term have included establishing the European External Action Service, which merged the External Relations Departments of the European Commission and the Council of the European Union, and was to have diplomats seconded from national foreign services. Throughout the first half of 2010, Ashton sought agreement between the Council, the Parliament and the Commission over the shape of the EEAS. Parliament agreed to the plan on the 8th of July, when MEPs approved the service by 549 votes for and 78 against, with 17 abstentions. The Council approved the transfer of departments to the EEAS on the 20th of July. Until the EEAS became operational, Ashton had been supported by a staff of about 30 people, working with EU Special Representative Alexander Rondos to head Operation Atalanta, an EU military action off the coast of Somalia, which curtailed piracy, helping to reach a deal between Serbia and Kosovo that normalized the ties, successfully negotiating with the Egyptian army a visit to the deposed President Mohamed Morsi in their custody. She reported that he was in good health and was well treated and aware of current affairs. Chairmanship of the P5+1 in the negotiations with Iran on nuclear matters in 2013, which led to the Geneva Interim Agreement on the Iranian nuclear program. Her visit to Kiev during Ukraine's Euromaidan protests. Serbia-Kosovo. In April 2013, after 2 years of negotiations, the governments of Serbia and Kosovo reached agreement to normalize the relations. Although Serbia did not formally recognize Kosovo as an independent state, it did, in effect, concede that the government in Pristina has legal authority over the whole territory, including Serb-majority areas of northern Kosovo. In return, Kosovo agreed to grant a degree of autonomy to 4 Serb-majority areas. The agreement, which among other things removed obstacles to Serbia and Kosovo joining the European Union, followed Ashton's mediation of 10 rounds of talks between Serbia's Prime Minister, Ivica Dačić, and Kosovo Prime Minister Hashim Thaci. A cross-party committee of the U.S. House of Representatives nominated Ashton and her fellow negotiators Dačić and Thaci for the Nobel Peace Prize. A similar nomination came from the group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament. Iran. After the November 2013 negotiation of an interim agreement with Iran over its nuclear program, the Financial Times read that Ashton was no longer the diplomatic dilettante. A senior French diplomat was quoted as saying, "I tip my hat to her. She truly played a decisive role." The report continued that, after initially insisting on negotiating only with other foreign ministers, by the latter stages of the negotiations the Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif now wanted to deal only with Lady Ashton. Said a Western diplomat that the others agreed to this was significant. For China and Russia to be outside while she was in the room negotiating details was quite remarkable. Ukraine. In December 2013, Ashton visited Kiev. She said she was impressed by the determination of Ukrainians demonstrating for the European perspective of the country, and observed with sadness that police used force to remove peaceful people from the center of Kiev. Dialogue with political forces and society and the use of arguments is always better than the argument of force. Subsequently, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin criticized Ashton's categorization of the anti-government protests in Kiev as peaceful in nature, pointing to the death of a number of police officers. At the beginning of March, a recording of a conversation between Ashton and the Estonian minister Minister Irma's PAET was released. In the call, PAET said he had been told by a woman doctor named Olga that snipers responsible for killing police and civilians in Kiev last month were protest movement provocateurs rather than supporters of then-President Viktor Yanukovych. Ashton responds, "I didn't know. Gosh." Quote, "So there is a stronger and stronger understanding that behind snipers it was not Yanukovych, it was somebody from the new coalition," PAET says. Ashton replies, "I think we don't want to investigate. I didn't pick that up, that's interesting. Gosh," she says. The Estonian Foreign Ministry confirmed the accuracy of the leak but clarified that Foreign Minister PAET was giving an overview of what he had heard in Kiev and expressed concern over the situation on the ground. "We reject the claim that PAET was giving an assessment of the opposition's involvement in the violence," the woman doctor, Dr. Olga Bogomilets, said in an interview reported by Paul Waldy of the Globe and Mail that, in her conversation with the Estonian minister, she did not indicate that protesters used snipers. She simply relayed to the Estonian minister what she saw the day protesters shot in the head and heart. "What I saw were people who were killed by snipers and only on side." Single quote. On the 28th of March 2014, Ashton issued a news release condemning violence by members of the Ukrainian nationalist political party Right Sector, stating, "I strongly condemn the pressure by activists of the Right Sector who have surrounded the building of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Such an intimidation of the parliament is against democratic principles and rule of law. I call on the Right Sector and other parties in Ukraine to refrain from the use of threat of violence. They need to hand over any unauthorized arms to the authorities immediately." Russia President Putin signed the new treason law on the 12th of November 2012. Ashton expressed concern at the new law, potentially penalizing contacts with foreign nationals with up to 20 years in prison, and reducing the burden of proof for charges of treason and espionage. Quote, "The United Nations Committee Against Torture stated that the new law could prohibit sharing information on the human rights situation in Russia with the United Nations human rights organs." According to Ashton, the March 2013 inspection wave in Russia seemed aimed at undermining civil society activities. Assessment's early phase as EU High Representative. Ashton was questioned by members of the European Parliament in 2009 about her role as National Treasurer in the British campaign for nuclear disarmament in the 1980s, amid claims by its opponents that it may have had financial links to the Soviet Union. Ashton responded that she had not taken any direct money from communist countries. Much of the organization's funds had been collected in buckets at marches and demonstrations, she said, adding that she was the first to order an audit of CND's finances. Her spokesman said, "She never visited the Soviet Union, she had no contacts with the Soviet Union and she never accepted money from Soviet sources. She has never been a member of the Communist Party." In February 2010, Ashton was criticized within the EU community for not visiting Haiti in the wake of the 2010 Haiti earthquake. A number of defense ministers reportedly also complained that she had not attended a European defense summit in Mallorca. More broadly, senior officials within her team were said to complain that she spoke only in generalities. A rumor that she switched off her phone after 8 p.m. every day was greeted by Ashton with ridicule. In February 2011, Ashton received the lowest grade in a survey rating the performance of European commissioners. The survey, carried out by lobbying and PR company Burson Marsteller, asked 324 Brussels policymakers to rate the European commissioners with a grade of A to E. Ashton scored an E for her performance, the only commissioner to receive a grade below D. In March 2012, Ashton was criticized by Israeli politicians for comparing the shooting of Jewish children in Toulouse with the situation in Gaza. Ashton told Palestinian youths at a UNRWA event, "When we think of what happened in Toulouse today, when we remember what happened in Norway a year ago, when we know what is happening in Syria, when we see what is happening in Gaza and Barroso and in different parts of the world, we remember young people and children who lose their lives." Quote. After she was quoted in the press as not having mentioned the Israeli city of Barroso, Israeli politicians denounced her for equating the murder of 3 children and a rabbi in the shooting attack with the situation in Gaza. Her spokesman stated that her remark had been grossly distorted, and that she had also referenced Israeli victims in Barroso, but this fact had been omitted from the original transcript. In counterpoint to earlier criticism of Ashton for not travelling enough, in September 2012 the Daily Telegraph criticised her for not being present in Brussels for enough European Commission meetings, reporting that Ashton had missed 21 out of 32 regular weekly meetings held so far that year. To the paper's complaint that Ashton's absences were leaving Britain without a voice at such meetings, European diplomatic officials said that, under EU treaties, commissioners serve as representatives not of individual member countries but of the European interest. Ashton's staff also pointed to her personal involvement in nuclear negotiations with Iran as among the international responsibilities that had kept her away from Commission meetings. The Polish Minister for European and Economic Affairs, Mikołaj Augelewicz, stated in 2011 that criticism of Ashton was a lot of hot air and that she has an impossible job to do and she is doing it well. At the end of her time in office, people will be more positive about what she has done. She will leave a real legacy. Ashton was said in February 2010 to be angry over what she perceived as the latent sexism among some of her European peers that underpinned some of the criticisms aimed at her. She told the press that her work was sometimes hampered by the limited resources provided to her. She is not, for example, provided with her own aeroplane, something taken for granted by U.S. Secretaries of State. Later phase as EU High Representative. The tone of public comment on Ashton's performance in office was subsequently to be influenced especially by her contributions to negotiations over Kosovo and Iran. In October 2013, Der Spiegel wrote of her, "But now the 57-year-old Baroness is suddenly at the center of world diplomacy, and whenever she is mentioned, she earns praise for her hard-nosed negotiating skills, her stamina and her diplomatic talents." It is said that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has much faith in her. She is discreet and perceptive, but also tenacious. That makes her an ideal negotiator, says Alexander Graf Lambsdorff, the head of Germany's business-friendly Free Democratic Party in the European Parliament and a member of its Committee on Foreign Affairs. One of the critics of Ashton's appointment came to concede her effectiveness in office. In September 2013, Peter Oborne, the chief political commentator of the Daily Telegraph, wrote, "Well, let's admit we were all completely wrong. It is now obvious that Catherine Ashton has been of success. In her unobtrusive but determined way, she can boast real achievement. Last year a peace deal was struck between Serbia and Kosovo. Nobody had thought it possible. It was a massive step towards healing ancient hatreds and building economic prosperity. It was brokered by Baroness Ashton. I have never met Baroness Ashton, but I guess that one of her secrets is that she keeps her head down, does not flaunt her ego, and allows others to take the credit. It takes little imagination to envisage how a male politician from any of the main parties would have exploited the Kosovo peace deal, or the Morsi visit. She just kept her head down and quietly got on with her job. In July 2014, the Daily Mail commented on the Ukrainian situation. Don't look either to the EU, where the know-nothing former local council officer Lady Ashton, ludicrously in charge of foreign affairs, has poked the Russian bear with a puny stick by attempting to lure Ukraine into the Brussels fold. In the same month, as discussions took place on the selection of Ashton's successor, Paul Taylor of Reuters wrote in the New York Times, as part of a larger critique of the political nature of appointments to the European Commission, while Ms. Ashton had some successes, brokering a first accord between Serbia and Kosovo and leading negotiations for an interim nuclear deal between Iran and world powers. Critics say she has too often been missing in action closer to home. Reflecting on her record, in July 2014, Adam Bolton in the UK's Sunday Times concluded, as the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Catherine Ashton still bestrides the international stage 4 years after Gordon Brown, the man who gave her the job, was expelled from the corridors of power. She was a surprise nominee to everyone, including herself, and few would have expected then that her successor as Britain's Commissioner would struggle to match Baroness Ashton in calibre and clout, titles and styles. Miss Catherine Ashton. Ms. Catherine Ashton. The RT. Hon. the Baroness Ashton of Upholland. The RT. Hon. the Baroness Ashton of Upholland PC. The RT. Hon. the Baroness Ashton of Upholland GCMG PC. Honours and Awards. Awards. In February 2013, Ashton was assessed as one of the 100 most powerful women in the United Kingdom by Woman's Hour on BBC Radio 4. She was awarded an honorary degree from the University of East London in 2005. Honours. Dame Herd Cross, Order of St Michael and St George, Grand Officer, Order of the White Double Cross. On July 1, 2014, she received the Order of the White Double Cross Second Class from Slovakia's President Andrej Kiska for strengthening and pursuing of common foreign and security policy of the EU. Baroness Ashton of Upholland was appointed Dame Grand Cross of the Order of St Michael and St George in the 2015 New Year Honours list, upon her retirement as EU High Representative.